Hey, deserving listeners, it's time to continue watching 90 Day Fiancé and reacting to it. Let's get to it.
I haven't really told anyone, not even close friends and family, that Hazel is bisexual because most people are going to have all of these preconceived notions, and I'm not going to tell her to change. So Hazel having a girlfriend is going to be a part of our married life.
Again, she's bisexual and poly, so it's like, let's not conflate the two.
Everything was beautiful for about 2.5 days. But day 3, Hazel just put an end to it. Hazel felt like Minnie was more into me than she was into Hazel.
Okay, so I don't know if I showed it, but Tarik said that the two of them broke up and that Tarik met another woman, I believe in the Philippines, and that Tarik was getting back together with Hazel, and then Hazel was like, oh, why don't we involve that third woman in our relationship, again, wanting to have a polyamorous relationship. And Tarik agreed, and the three of them were in a polyamorous relationship, not a bisexual relationship. It involved bisexuality for the two women, but for him, for the three of them, it's polyamory. That's what they're talking about. And they all agreed to it, so they've done it before, which is interesting. I didn't know they'd done it before, and it sounded like for a few days it was going well for the three of them. And then it sounds like the other woman was more into Tarik than she was into Hazel, and Hazel wanted to call the whole thing off. Okay, that happens sometimes in poly relationships. That's why you have to have a lot of conversations about, well, what if this happens? And what if that happens? And you go to the other person, you say, like, what do you think's going to happen here? For Hazel, she might have a stipulation of like, look, if we involve another person in our relationship, if we are polyamorous with someone else, they cannot be into you more than they're into me. I need them to be into me as much as you or more into me, because I want a intimate, emotional relationship, a special relationship with this other person. And I don't want to be the third wheel. Now, what some polyamorous people will do is they'll say, okay, well, it kind of looks like she's more into Tarik. Well, how about, Hazel, you find another person that maybe even you're involved with exclusively, meaning that the other person is not involved with Tarik or the other person. And so it's interesting. So it sounds like Tarik is a polyamorous person because, or at least he can tolerate it. He might have even liked it, but that the fact that he was in that for a few days indicates something. I don't know what it says. We'd have to talk with Tarik and say, like, how did you feel? What do you want with your life? What's your most comfortable sort of home base? Is it polyamory? Is it not? Is it both? I don't know, but that's interesting data.
A couple of weeks ago, and said, yo, I saw in the news that coronavirus is like going wild there in the part of the world you're from. Are you good? The next day she gets back and it's like 10 text messages.
Does Hazel know that you reached out to her?
Not yet.
Oh,
Gonna tell her. I'm gonna tell her.
you should.
Good, but you should tell people before you do it. This is what polyamorous people are so good at in terms of the people I've treated, is that they recognize. So let's rewind the clock back, and for Tarik, the coronavirus is happening, and he has this urge to reach back out to essentially his ex-girlfriend, even though Hazel is like, do not contact her, do not contact her. And he's like, oh, I'm kind of worried about her. I want to reach out to her. Polyamorous people, non-monogamous people, when they enter that world and they read all the books and they go to the seminars and they go to the therapy, they understand what's happening for them. They're like, oh, you know what? I kind of miss that person. And I want a connection with that person. But it's wrong to deceive and go behind someone's back. That is wrong. Under any circumstances, that's wrong. Under the vast majority of circumstances. I need to go to my person, my Hazel, and say, honey, I know you didn't want me to contact the person, and I haven't. But I have an urge to because I'm worried about her. And frankly, I still have some feelings for her. They're not anything like the feelings I have for you. But I kind of want to reach out and just see if she's doing okay. And that's it. That's all I want to do. And I guess I'm still kind of grieving how the relationship ended because, I did kind of like her, and so did you. But you got jealous and you didn't want to be with her, and I want to respect that because you are my person. But I want to reach out. Maybe could we text her together at the same time? Would that feel okay to you? Okay, now Hazel might say, no, totally off the table. Okay, but often people in Hazel's position will say something like, oh, well, thanks. Now, a well-oiled relationship, if you will, Hazel would say, thank you so much for bringing that up to me. Thank you so much for not going behind my back. That was an option. I don't know if it occurred to you, but you could have done that. Thank you so much for not doing that. And I want to honor that in you, and I want to actually set up this kind of communication. So yes, feel free to text her as long as you tell me whatever I want to know. So tomorrow I'm probably going to ask you, did she text back? Did you communicate? I might also ask you, are you still in love with me? Do you want to be with her? Because I want you to be with me and I don't want you to be with her. So do you still love me? These kinds of communications, these kinds of conversations are the kind of conversations I see polyamorous people having. And how mature is that? I've seen some of the most mature, emotionally balanced, emotionally intelligent people on the planet, and they were polyamorous. They have these kinds of conversations. They will say, you know what, that made me jealous, and I don't like to feel jealous. So can we do something about that? And then people take care of each other. What happens so many times is that people will be stuck in a monogamous relationship even though one or both people are oriented towards polyamory. And what do? They cheat. And then there's hurt feelings. Why? Because of the deception and the lies. A lot of couples could do well by thinking, I wonder if I'm oriented towards polyamory. Now, you want to do this well before you meet someone and figure it out. In the same way you want to figure out your sexuality. You want to figure out, am I heterosexual? Am I gay? Am I bisexual? Am I asexual? Am I demisexual? What am I? You want to figure that out, and you explore. You figure out, what are my, where's my heart? What do I want? How do I, interact? What are my needs? And then you want to, you do all those steps. And then you start looking for your person who is like you. So if you figure out you're poly, then you find another poly person or a person who is absolutely cool with being with a poly person. Because sometimes monogamous people are fine being with a poly person, but they don't want to be poly themselves. Anyway, let's continue watching.
As reserved and quiet as Hazel is, she's not a pushover. So I'm afraid to tell Hazel that I reached out to Minnie. Hazel's like damn near on her way here. And I'm worried that it might mess everything up. Eventually, I have to tell Hazel.
So we always use this show as a jumping off point. I want to remind everyone that lying is not okay. Lying by omission is not okay. And I understand, if we could go back in time as Tarik was headed to that crossroad where it's like, well, I'm going to text her, but I don't want to tell Hazel. Or maybe I shouldn't text her. Or maybe I should tell Hazel that I want to text her. Whatever that crossroad was. And then we watch what Tarik does, and he's like, yeah, I'm going to text this other woman, and I'm not going to tell Hazel. We would stop him and say, why? Why are you doing this? Almost no one is going to say, ha ha ha, because I like to lie. No. He would say, well, I'm scared. I'm scared of what Hazel would say. I'm scared that Hazel would say no if I did ask her. And I care about this other person. And I'm scared of telling Hazel. I'm scared of asking. Okay, you're scared. That is not a justification for lying and deceiving. You're entitled to your anxiety. And maybe Hazel is being unfair to you to make you feel afraid. And that we could identify. Hazel is being unfair. Who knows? But the point is that you're anxious about how Hazel will react. Okay, that does not justify lying by omission and deceiving. So let's address the anxiety first. Let's figure out that, because that'll last you the rest of your relationship. If you're afraid of Hazel now, you're always going to be afraid of Hazel. Also, at some point, she might find out. And so is that worth it? If you're afraid of something, you should be more afraid of her finding out that you lied in the future than to tell her now. The little bit of anxiety of telling her now is nothing close to the anxiety that he's feeling right now of, oh my God, if I tell her, she might break up with me. That's what he's thinking. That's rational, because lying to someone hurts them. 1. 2, it makes them wonder, is everything a lie? When you lie to someone, it throws everything into question. Even though for you, you might be thinking, well, I've only lied this once. How can the other person know that? How in the world could they know that? They'd be stupid to think that. Most people only get caught on some of the lies. So if you detect a lie in someone, it's rational, in fact wise, to assume you have been lied to not countless, but many more times than that. And so you have to adjust your life to that. It's like, okay, well, I was lied to once, so let's just times that by 10 or 20. What else have they lied to me about? Did they lie to me about that? Was that a lie? Most things you cannot confirm. Most things you cannot say, well, when you said you loved me, did you really love me? That you can't confirm that. You can't take a blood test and say, look, the results show I love you. Because you have to rely on trusting the other person that they do in fact love you. Do you want to erode the entire foundation of trust in a relationship? If yes, then go ahead and lie in a situation like this. All right, well, that does it for that episode of Psychology in Seattle. Everyone out there, please take care of yourself because you deserve it. You really, really do.